Congressman Kucinich has been against the war in Afghanistan from the start. It's no secret that Afghanistan's location makes it an important place for many global powers. Bordered by Iran on the west and Pakistan on the east, the country has some pretty influential neighbors. But how do all those competing interests play out on the ground, and how is all of that affecting the war? Well, joining me to help discuss this is investigative journalist Webster Tarpley. So, Webster, first of all, we have China, India, the United States, Iran, all with different interests and agendas in Afghanistan. Tell us about some of those interests.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to see that the announced purpose of the U.S. presence, which is supposedly to combat al-Qaeda, is simply preposterous, and I don't think anybody takes this seriously anymore. The point of this is geopolitics. It's about oil. It's about the great game in this part of the world, domination. And the reason that the U.S. is there right now, as distinct from before, is a policy which aims at taking the civil war in Afghanistan and exporting it massively into Pakistan through the Pashtun population and also to some degree through Baluchistan. The goal being to break up Pakistan, to create all kinds of problems for Pakistan, to weaken the central government in Islamabad, and above all to make sure that Pakistan never serves as a critical energy corridor between Iran, where the oil is, and China, where the oil is needed. And Pakistan would become, as some people have said, Pipelineistan between those two. The U.S. doesn't want that to happen. The larger purpose of this, of course, is that Pakistan is a friend of China. And China plus Pakistan plus the Indian Muslims are more powerful than India. So the U.S. has got to do something to redress that balance. So we get into that side of the great game. Inherent in all this is the contradiction between the announced purpose and the real reason. We're working under the strategy announced by Obama at West Point last December. And even at that time, everybody said what he had announced was a Rube Goldberg strategy, a contraption that makes no sense, because he said, our goal is to attack al-Qaeda. At the same time, the U.S. intelligence was saying al-Qaeda is in Pakistan. Bin Laden lives there, they say, so-called al-Qaeda. But the U.S. forces are not going there. They're going into Afghanistan. So what sense does this make? Well, it only makes sense if you see that the idea is to get the civil war going into Pakistan. Now, there's another option that's been built in more recently, which is that if this doesn't seem to be succeeding, we had on the front page of the Washington Post that if a large terror stunt is pulled here in the United States, staged, and if you can tie that to Pakistan, the U.S. will feel free to bomb or invade Pakistan, and that would be the way to accelerate this process. But as you see, it's a hopeless mass of contradictions, deceptions within deceptions.
So how can the United States continue its mission and its agenda in Afghanistan with all of these other competing interests? Is there a way that they can influence what these other countries want as well?
Well, they probably can't, and I think you can see this in terms of the U.S. Internal politics. Obama has got a timetable which says begin pulling out in July of 2011. Why July 2011? Well, there's something called the Iowa straw poll, which is in July 2011. That's when the presidential campaign begins in Iowa and New Hampshire. And Congressman Kucinich or somebody like him, if they're serious about opposing this policy, they better get busy and announce a primary challenge to Obama. We need a peace candidate running in the Democratic primary in order to bring that home. On the other side, there's also political cynicism on the side of General Petraeus. The most interesting thing in these hearings that we've been having, right, the Senate and House Armed Services Committee, we had Senator Levin, the head of Senate Armed Services, pointedly asked General Petraeus, will you endorse the timetable of pulling out starting in July 2011? And Petraeus pointedly refused to give him a straight answer. He said, well, I have to qualify that. You got to watch out about timetables, because that's an issue that Petraeus could use to run for president against Obama. He could say, I'm being undercut here by Obama. I want victory, and therefore I should be president, and I promise victory. That would be a Petraeus strategy.
So if President Obama is kind of campaigning himself or portraying himself as a peaceful person, what do you make of the fact that the Kandahar offensive has been postponed? Will it happen later? Will it be canceled altogether? And is that an indication that this whole thing was a failure?
Well, I have to point out that Obama was always the biggest warmonger when it came to Afghanistan, right? He was a dove on Iraq, but warmonger for Afghanistan. Now, as you say, The Marja offensive has bogged down, very unsatisfactory results. The Kandahar offensive is postponed until September. It means that their strategy, whatever it is not working. General McChrystal is a special forces guy. He's a spook. He's not a conventional forces normal military person. He deals in counter gangs and subversion and things like that. The people don't trust him because his policy is to antagonize them. It's to bomb them, to strafe them, to blow up wedding parties and so forth. And then he wonders, why don't they like us? Well, they're not going to like you. So I think the quicker the U.S. gets out of here, the better it is. And that's going to be accelerated. We've got the NATO meeting in Lisbon. The British are beginning to have second thoughts. The Poles say they want an exit strategy. The Dutch are leaving. The Canadians are leaving. How about Turkey? Turkey has a contingent, and they've been getting a terrible treatment from the U.S. Maybe they want to leave too. So out of the 46 countries, that's already 5 or 6 that might be headed for the exit. So without NATO, the U.S. can't do it. Then it ends. But again, a peace candidate in the Democratic primaries would also help things along here.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that meeting. Investigative journalist Webster Tarpley, thanks so much.